The singing brothers who brought disco to the world have spent most of the past decade writing for other star performers. But boosted by a new album, the Bee Gees are now taking off on a world tour.
Since their first appearance on Australian television 25 years ago, the Bee Gees have been to the heights, selling over 100 million records in the process. In the 80s, they dropped from sight, devoting their time almost totally to songwriting. But now the brothers Gibb are back with bags packed for a world tour.
It's actually easier than it used to be. Yeah, so it feels easy. We can't look at it in terms of whether it's hard or not, we're just having a tremendous time. But we're also getting face to face with our own hardcore fans, which we haven't done for 10 years.
The tour has been inspired in part by tragedy, by the death last year of brother Andy, a sad event that made them feel it's time to go on the road again.
We don't want to waste what we do. Andy wasted a lot of the things that he was very capable of doing. There were so many things that he would have been great at.
Now with a new album, the world is again the Bee Gees' oyster. In Hollywood, Ken Burslem for 10 News.
Here's a Bee Gee fan.
Yeah, I like
Bruce
them.
McIlvany. Bruce, Gary Buckenauer is now...
The Australian tour is in memory of their youngest brother, Andy, who died last year.
It's 10 years since the Bee Gees last did a major tour. They haven't come back for the money, it's more a memorial get-together, the tour where the 3 Bee Gees were to become 4. But the death of Andy, their youngest brother, last year put an end to those plans.
Andy, when he was alive, did waste a lot of his talent, didn't do things he ought to do, you know. We don't want to be in that situation.
At every one of their sellout concerts, a song is dedicated to the memory of Andy. He was just 30 when he died. After a skyrocket ride to stardom, his career stalled. He became hooked on drugs and alcohol. Eventually, he died from heart disease. To this day, his brothers still think maybe they could have done more to help. They owe their multi-million-dollar careers to those early days back in Australia where they got their start. They're returning later this year. It's going to be a tour full of memories of a younger brother who should have been here. Robert Penfold, their multi-million-dollar careers to those early days back in Australia where they got their start. They're returning later this year. It's going to be a tour full of... The world tour coincides with the release of their 26th album. It's called One, and dedicated to youngest brother Andy, who died last year, aged 30.
It's still upsetting deep down, but easier to talk about. He was a good kid. It's a pity that he had such a short life.
Remarkably, in these days, perhaps, the Bee Gees can still live a fairly normal lifestyle. In London, they can walk the streets, not totally unnoticed, but at least unhindered. They admit that baby brother Andy lost control of the situation, the sudden stardom, the slide into oblivion. These days, the brothers blame themselves for at least some of his problems. They think they should have done more, maybe acted earlier, to save his life.
Well, obviously we feel that guilty. I mean, we've never felt less than guilty about it. That the fact that we were, the 3 of us, always together, and that Andy was a solo artist and wasn't really a Bee Gee, and in the later years wanted to be a Bee Gee and wanted to have his solo career as well. It was very conflicting time for him and for us. Yes, we still feel guilty about it.
The return to Australia will be something special. The Bee Gees started there. It was Australia that gave them their first #1 record, the very beginning of an extraordinary career.